Welcome to Coryell Roofing, setting the standard. Today we're going to be talking about loss prevention, and we have got some amazing guests with us today. So to my left is Dr. Kyle Reynolds, highly decorated educator from the state of Oklahoma, former military. He is just an unbelievable individual in the way that he commits himself to other people and always has. So it's quite an honor to have you on the show today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Thank you. And then we also have Anthony Velez, SSG Anthony Velez. He's a highly decorated soldier, veteran. Anthony is from Edmond, Oklahoma, and has a family there. He's tied into bull riding and PBR and lots of really, really cool things. But probably the coolest thing about Anthony is he's a Purple Heart recipient. So he's sacrificed for our country, and now he's helping people throughout a lot of our country, making sure they stay protected, right, Anthony?
That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a privilege.
And then Kelly Coryell, our Director of Sales. Kelly has a long tenure of directing sales in multiple avenues and companies, and specifically right now, he's probably the lead estimator in the nation. If you had to pull somebody out of any industry and say, who's the best at what they do, Kelly's definitely leading the charge in the nation for helping guide roofing projects throughout the nation. So thanks for being here, Kelly.
Thank you.
So we get to talk about loss prevention today. That's a word that not many people really understand until you dig into it. For about the past 3 years, Coryell Roofing has been on a campaign screaming from the mountaintops, trying to get everybody to understand we have to focus on loss prevention. And the reason Dr. Kyle Reynolds is here today is because he has specific experience with regard to projects that did not practice loss prevention and how he had to combat that and how he had to deal with it. So as we look at K-12 education and even higher education, but we're going to focus in on K-12 education today and loss prevention. Specifically in the South, the states that Coryell Roofing really focuses on, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, and Tennessee, and then future other states. We've got a lot of people to protect. So Dr. Reynolds, you have dedicated your life to education. Can you tell us why?
That goes back to my family history, really. My grandmother on my mom's side was a one-room schoolhouse teacher, and spent a lot of time at grandma's house growing up, and probably that influenced me being an English teacher too, because you didn't get away with anything. You didn't get away with improper grammar. And just being in that environment and reading highlights magazines growing up and just doing those educational things just left an impact on me and helped fuel that passion to do for others.
What age did you know you wanted to be an educator?
It was always there. I can't give you an age. It was just always there. And even when I tried to get away from it in college and change my major, like all the other cool kids did, and change it, 4 or 5 times, it just kept coming back.
Were you ever a coach?
I get asked that a lot. Must be this great physique, right? I coached the academic team for a couple of years and coached the mock trial team.
Wow, that's really cool.
But I made a decision early on, about 6th grade, that they didn't make you run laps in band.
Right.
And so I stuck with the band the rest of the way through.
That's great. So, and tell us about your military experience.
So after about 3 semesters of college and that ultimate freedom and getting away from home base, I knew I needed some direction and some discipline in my life. And so I walked into a National Guard Armory and on the north side of Norman, Oklahoma, and saw Staff Sergeant Jimmy Harris. And I said, what's it take for a guy to sign up in the Guard around here? And just a few months later, I was at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was a scout. Had no idea what I was getting into, but that was really, as I reflect back on my life, that was one of the top 3 best decisions of my life.
That's so awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And you focused your entire adult life and career on protecting and educating people. That's pretty powerful. That's a selfless human.
Well,
really
thanks.
Impressive.
Appreciate that.
So Anthony, tell us about your career, your time in the military, the Purple Heart, the Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I joined in '99, probably just like Dr. Reynolds, was just looking to go serve our country and provide a good service that many of our other past family members or somebody that we knew around us did, and just kind of want to leave a long-lasting legacy. I was an Army Staff Sergeant, was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Riley, and Fort Bragg. I deployed 4 times. I am a Purple Heart recipient and a Medal of Valor recipient. Also one of 10% of the MOS holders in the military that carries the St. Christopher Medal as well. So, the military has definitely structured my life and where it goes, not just past, but present. And moving forward, I spent a lot of time helping veterans through college, universities, and then also through Folds of Honor and a couple other different groups. So I'm really proud to represent our country in that way.
That's awesome. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
And now here you are, and you've done many, many things throughout your career, but you're here protecting people in roofing. So you've dedicated your life to protecting and serving people.
Absolutely. Proud to do it.
A lot of people don't think about that in terms of roofing. They think roofing are just contractors that go up and put stuff on top of a building, and as long as it doesn't leak, see you later. But there really is a protection mechanism to it, isn't there?
100%.
And the Coryell motto is protecting people, property, and policy. So we have to look at every different aspect of that and how it fits. So I can't think of 2 better guys to be waving that flag that have served in the military, educated, our next generations. That's a really powerful thing. Kelly, you've dedicated your entire career to sales and educating. And by test, you actually test out to be an educator. By definition, by a personality exam. So do you find that fulfilling in roofing?
I do. First and foremost, going after these 2 guys, it's a high bar. But
Yeah.
I do. I find it very fulfilling. I love teaching. I love learning things. And we've got a great group of young men and women that are coming up that they're just pouring into them.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad I'm the one asking questions because I don't have to talk about my decorated position next to these 2 guys. But no, it's fun what we do. And, the loss prevention side of it, Dr. Reynolds was the superintendent at Woodward Public Schools in Woodward, Oklahoma for how many years?
I was superintendent for 9. I spent 28 years working for that school. It's my hometown.
In that district, 28 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's admirable. And you're current superintendent at Sealing Public Schools?
Correct.
Okay. So you continue to serve.
Right.
And you're still enjoying it?
I'm loving it. Luckiest guy you know.
That's awesome.
100%.
You also have done a lot of leadership training, haven't you? You're part of Leadership Oklahoma?
Sure. Yeah, Leadership Woodward, and that led into Leadership Oklahoma. And that allowed me to turn around and lead Leadership Woodward, establish and lead a group called SALT, Superintendent's Advisory and Leadership Team, a group of students that try to leave an impact on kids and expose them to facets of the community and our part of the state, in hopes that as they learn more about that part of the state, that they would come back and establish their roots there.
Awesome. So in your 28 years at Woodward Public Schools in Oklahoma and your current reign as superintendent in Sealing, what are some of the challenges that you face in today's environment, the climate of today, dealing with all things being superintendent? What do you deal with?
Well, superintendent in Oklahoma, the budget. That's generally the number one factor that superintendents have to worry about. The economic engine that drives Oklahoma is oil and gas.
Mm-hmm.
And so directly or indirectly, that affects almost every school in the state, because as the price of oil goes up, revenue comes in. As the price of oil goes down, that shuts off the revenue. And we know then all of a sudden schools are laying off people, tightening the belt, cutting programs, and doing without. As one of my former mentors used to say, it turns into poor schools, poor ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into bad habits. And it turns into just the old duct tape and baling wire, for lack of a better phrase.
That's pretty scary when you think about being an educator and having to take on that type of practice with facilities that protect students, protect
Right.
staff. that you have to take a low budget duct tape and baling wire mentality. Has it always been that way, cyclical through the oil and gas transitions?
That's the way the economy is built in Oklahoma. And so unless there is a local source of revenue that would override that, so we do have a funding formula in Oklahoma that's designed to equalize across the board. It's never been funded to the point that it works like it's supposed to. So now that I'm in sealing schools, I've gotten to see sort of how the other half lives, not the other half, because it's a small percentage. Sealing's a beneficiary of not only oil and gas, local revenue and local businesses, but also wind energy that has come up. And so sealing is off of the state funding formula. So we're not susceptible to the ups and downs of the oil and gas economy that drives the state. So, but sadly, what I saw in Woodward was this pattern of just use it up, make it do without, or, and kids were used to that. One time we added on to a school and renovated restrooms, and I had kids helping us move some furniture back in. And I said, hey guys, come check this out. And two of the kids responded with, wow, that looks like a restroom in a fancy restaurant. Wow. Or, wow, that looks like a restroom in a fancy hotel. They did not have a frame of reference for something that nice in a school building. And I thought, what a disservice we've done to them.
Absolutely. So have you been able to see that improve, or have you been able to, in your leadership tactics, been able to turn the tide, so to say?
I think it does. I think, when you, as a community, are able to pour into the students, they get it. A mentoring program that one of my principals started has older adults come in and read and have lunch with younger students. And one of the students, after we completed an addition to her school, this is a little fourth grader, she said, Miss Carroll, can you come and see the new wing to our school? Wow. She said, you can't believe what they did for us. A fourth grader said that.
That's incredible.
So that affects the culture and climate of your very school when you're able to do things that affect the sense of pride for your kids.
Absolutely. So at Coryell Roofing, we've seen that in the state of Oklahoma, especially with the way that the bid laws are set up. One of the reasons that we wanted to be very proactive with helping schools identify areas of weaknesses, areas of vulnerabilities, where they're exposed, by going to each campus, doing a full roof performance assessment campus-wide that doesn't cost the district anything to do. It allowed us to help the district see where they've used duct tape and baling wire for maybe a little too long, and we can get them past that, and we can create a plan. Is that helpful to a superintendent?
I think so. And of course, when the guys came and looked at my roofs, we found not only where we had tried to make do for years, we found hail damage that we were unaware of. And that hail damage was probably 3 or 4 months old. And I'm a superintendent. I'm not a roofer, so I'm not crawling up on the roof. And yet no one had told me about it, so we were unaware. So yeah, over time, that roofing part is not sexy. Yeah. And so what it translates into, it affects the inside of the building. The ceiling tiles that are dingy, moldy, complaints about the smell. You just get tired of replacing those ceiling tiles, and so you wait for the rainy season and you put the trash can under it, and you just wait until it's over to replace those ceiling tiles while the kids are gone during the summer. Or in our case, with our early childhood center, which was only 6 or 7 years old, the kiddie pool. Literally had a kiddie pool that they would drag out into the hallway to catch the rain every time it rained. And that was just an expectation. That was the norm.
Understood. So Kelly and Anthony are here today because they did a lot of work with you at Woodward Public Schools to handle that situation when you did discover undetected hail damage. And it's fair to say that people all across the state of Oklahoma have become accustomed to that. And in fact, surrounding states too. Kansas deals with it, Texas deals with it, many other, and more states further east, the longer things go. Everybody has to deal with this. And a lot of times when storms hit a school, it happens at night when nobody's there. And when you show up the next day, as long as there's not water pouring into the building, you think, oh, we escaped it, right?
Right.
But then 12 to 18 months later, through freeze thaw cycles, fractures open up, and all of a sudden you got a kiddie pool sitting in your floor. And combated with, or combined with, the fact that the state bid laws are really not meant to give schools quality systems. It's meant to find it's supposed to be the most responsible bidder, but technically it tends to lend to the cheapest bidder.
Right.
And so somebody that's found a way to cut corners or cut cost out of a system, but that over time hurts a district, correct?
I agree 100%. And yet it's hard to blame them sometimes. You know, you think about a school right now, if they just passed a bond a few months ago and they're going out to bid to build a new school, I mean, if you can save a few bucks on the roof, what are you worried about? You're worried about tariffs. You're worried about steel going up. You're worried about some of those components. Are we going to put a tariff on Canada and the wood's going to go up? And so nobody sees the top of your building. So why not save a few bucks on the roof?
Right.
But you and I know different, because if you skimp on that, then you're just going to be locked in this cycle again.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yes.
And then you get put into a position where you have to make a decision. Once those roofs start exposing their weaknesses, then you have to make a decision between, do I spend money on a new roof system that will protect the students, keep them safe, keep safety issues out of the building, disruptions out of the classroom, and possibly take money from your budget that should be dedicated to teachers, correct?
Right. Absolutely.
So ultimately, that's hurting the education that we want to focus on in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. The pool of money is finite. And when that superintendent, if you're going for a bond issue to pay for roofs, I mean, you've got to eat up some of your political capital to go out to the community for that ask.
Absolutely. So Kelly, you were the first one on site when Woodward found out that they had some issues, and they called Coryell Roofing in and said, we've got problems. Dr. Reynolds was there on site. And what did you find?
First, we looked at 3 campuses and just did across the town of Woodward to see what was there. And sure enough, across their entire campus, so northwest, middle of the city, and then the southeast, we found massive amounts of hail damage. Just inferior roofs that had been hit by a pretty catastrophic storm and the damaged roofing systems.
They weren't built to withstand the storms that were
Not
coming
at all.
across the Oklahoma Panhandle, across Woodward.
And they had been there for a while, but the storm was pretty aggressive. They were inferior roofs, not built for the very severe hail rated standards.
So how did you take the information that you discovered on the rooftop and transfer it to Dr. Reynolds so that he can make an educated decision and guide his school board? How did you present
Using
that?
a roof performance assessment, you show photos, grade the roof, mark the hits, and say, here's what we're looking at. This is what your exposure is. If we don't take care of this or look at it now, here's what it could go to down the road.
And based on that actual project, you had actually had to file an insurance claim when the original storm hit years before that, but a lot of the damage to the roofs went undetected and revealed itself later. Isn't that correct?
I think that's correct. I mean, the bulk of that happened in the June of that year, so it was pretty recent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had some older openings, but you had some
Yep.
really new, fresh openings in the roof system just from the storm damage that occurred. So did you lay out a path for Dr. Reynolds on how to tackle this?
Without question, first and foremost, we showed them the 3 and said, I think we should look at the rest. And we got a pretty quick, yeah, I think we better. But yes, we laid out a path, exactly how to do it. Dr. Reynolds was very open to the idea.
Okay.
We went down the path.
So in laying that path out and creating a plan that moves Woodward forward, gets them out of the vulnerable, exposed situation that they were in, you had to design roof systems moving forward with loss prevention in mind, correct? Thinking, this is not the last storm that Woodward's ever going to see. They come across there all the time. So what was the train of thought there?
Protect the school district at all costs. Obviously, you have to weigh the funding that they had available with the best roof system possible. And not always do you get all the funding you want, especially in an insurance claim. So sometimes you have to make compromises on some roofs, make some roofs better. to spend the money wisely. So
Okay.
Dr. Reynolds made really, really smart decisions.
And has that been beneficial to Woodward Public Schools since that happened?
Oh, 100%. And just the low-hanging fruit is the fact that a couple of months ago there was a low-bid TPO roof on one section of the high school right next to our Coryell roof that a wind came through and ripped the TPO roof off.
Oh my God.
And yet our Coryell system that's designed to withstand the wind, the hail, no problem. So, I mean, that's just all you have to say. That's kind of a mic drop moment there. I was a little skeptical about the solution that was proposed for the ECC.
Yeah.
You know, traditional mindset with a standing seam metal roof is you take the metal off and you put metal back.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never heard of this metal retrofit. So that was scary to me. That was a scary moment of, you know, how that works, putting the insulation in and then a recovery board and then a single ply membrane. Oh, we can match colors. Okay, maybe. And then we found out, no, they don't have a red. Oh man, I don't know. I'm going to get in trouble. You know, this is not good. And as we were climbing up on the roof, I think it was Randy Young was with us, and he got a phone call from Duralast, and they said, we are getting ready to release a red for St. Jude Hospital. So we matched the red, green, and blue, the copper on the front. I drive by that school on a regular basis. I just live a couple of miles from it. Most people in the community don't even realize that that's no longer a standing seam metal roof. There's nothing about it that draws your attention to it, and yet we don't have to worry about the cosmetic exclusion of that roof taking hail, which right after that claim, probably a few months, in fact, our insurance company instituted that cosmetic exclusion. So if your metal roof gets beat up, they don't care.
Yeah, and we're seeing that everywhere.
Yeah.
And insurance companies are doing that to protect themselves. So, Anthony, this was a pretty unique project. In fact, the Early Childhood Center, ECC, at Woodward Public Schools won some awards for Coryell.
You did.
With Duralast, some project awards because of its uniqueness and the use of color and the types of membrane. Was it a challenging project?
Absolutely.
So you were the project manager over everything at Woodward Public Schools.
That's correct, from all the schools.
Okay. And how was that? Were you able to handle that entire project without disrupting classrooms? Were you able to manage it all the way through and satisfy Dr. Reynolds' expectations through it?
Well, he's sitting right here, so I won't answer for him, but I'm going to assume yes.
Exceeded my expectations.
You know, we worked really closely with Dr. Reynolds and his team. There were some restrictions as far as when schools was in and when children were moving about. So obviously we had to put a lot of safety emphasis in mind when we were cordoning off entry and exit points. And then when we were actually moving equipment around. Morning time when school was letting in and parents were dropping children off, we would typically already have had our rooftop loaded up with materials. Then we would sit idle until the parking lot cleared out, and then we went to work. If they had testing going on, we would coordinate, and then we would just move to different sections of the facility to make sure that nobody was disrupted, because it was the children in there. So we were just moving and grooving the whole time, and I think it worked out very well.
And it was impressive, and I could stop by the trailer at any time, and he knew exactly where they were and what was coming next. And if there was anything, state testing coming up where I did not need noise on a roof, not a problem. So Anthony was amazing to work with.
Do you think your military experience helped with that?
100%. I figure that Dr. Reynolds, all people can relate to this, that our organization and structure is key, our discipline, and accomplishing the mission at task, right? At the end of the day, I understand that his responsibility is everybody under the roof. My responsibility is to protect everybody under the roof from on top.
Understood. That's a big mission.
Huge.
And you have your platoon out there, and you were leading men and got the job done without any incidents. Everybody's safe, and the result speaks for itself. I mean, has Woodward sustained storms? You mentioned that you had one roof blow off and all the Coryell roofs stayed on, but have you been satisfied with the performance of the roof and the look of the roof? Cosmetically, everything's good?
Absolutely. It still looks phenomenal. I mean, obviously the high school roof you don't see from the ground, but that early childhood center still, especially because we used the faux ribbing on that copper color at the front, It just looks phenomenal when you drive by.
So loss prevention was at the forefront of everybody's mind through this project. And you, being a responsible superintendent, you wanted to protect that district. Again, we're protecting people, property, and policies. So you wanted to protect that district for many, many, many years to come. Loss prevention is a mechanism. It's a standard that is put in place to make sure that the roof systems are built to withstand the elements in that specific area, in that region. And it's been proven over and over again that the standards that were implemented on Woodward Public Schools have protected that district, correct? What would you recommend to other superintendents? Maybe new superintendents, superintendents that haven't had to deal with this before. What would you recommend to them if they have to consider the condition of their current roofs, where they may be vulnerable, where they may be exposed, and how they can protect themselves?
Well, my time in Woodward was a little bit different because it was personal to me. That was my school. That was my alma mater. I looked at that as an opportunity as to leave part of my legacy. But really, for any superintendent, I mean, why would you turn away from an opportunity to leave a place better than you found it? I mean, that's your legacy. That's one way to leave a legacy. One of our customers, Yukon Public Schools, I texted him when I got the inspection report back, and it was a perfect 100. And I said, look at that. That's part of your legacy for Yukon Public Schools. Your successors will not have to worry about that roof for 20 years.
Absolutely. So admirable. I mean, it feels good to protect people. It feels good to do things the right way. And that's what we at Coryell want to offer to every district. And I'm proud that we were able to do that at Woodward. You guys, are you proud of that project? Have you shared it with other schools, and what has the response been? Anthony?
Yeah, personally, I mean, I've used that as a introduction to multiple conversations. It's a privilege to have been able to serve the Woodward community, and we engaged in that community for multiple years, even after we did that. So I use it. Obviously, the ECC, it won a lot of awards. It was a special roof system that everybody talks about, and it's led to multiple other roofs of people doing special projects such as yours. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, Kelly, if you were to have a message to any other superintendents that might face the same situations that Dr. Reynolds has, what would you want to tell them right now?
Well, you can call Dr. Reynolds. you can call us. What would I tell them? Get your roofs looked at. Again, talk to your friends, talk to your peers, talk to people like Dr. Reynolds that have been through it, and we can help. His roofs and where Woodward is one of the most weather volatile places in all of Oklahoma and the central part of the United States. His are living up to the test.
And how can you help schools that are similar to Woodward focus on loss prevention? What is the key?
Yeah, we need to get up there, do roof performance assessments, document, photograph, and then we'll actually use some standards to take them through the next 20, 25, 30 years.
And this is probably a whole other segment we need to talk about, but in the roofing industry, there really aren't any standards required that protect people from the elements, protect schools from the elements. Other than the code, which is IBC and IECC, there's nothing to protect them from the elements. So it's up to the schools, it's up to the roofing contractors to raise the bar, to do things the right way. The same way you guys did in our military, protecting people, we have to do that for our schools as well.
Without question.
Thank you guys so much for being here today. Such an honor to get to talk to you, Dr. Reynolds, and Kelly and Anthony. Thank you for everything that you've done for Woodward Public Schools. We're so focused on loss prevention. We're so focused on protecting people, property, and policy. And to have these esteemed guests here today has been a privilege. Thank you.